Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it like she was ordering coffee. Flat, emotionless, routine. I need a break from you. That's how it started. Not with a fight. Not with tears. Just that. And I remember how quiet it got after. Even the ice in her Starbucks cup stopped clinking. We were sitting in the car outside Target. She had a few bags in her lap. Candles, skincare, some meaningless things she didn't need. She stared at her phone, scrolling, pretending to be tired, not guilty. I looked at her reflection in the window and said it before I even thought it through. Same. Forever works? She froze. No reaction at first, just silence. Then she turned her head like she was about to say something, but the words never came. I watched her swallow hard. That's when I knew. I'd hit the one nerve she didn't think I had. By the time we got home, she was in another room, on her iPhone, whispering to someone. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. You can tell when someone's voice shifts, when they start using that soft, fake tone reserved for someone new. The next morning, she was gone. Not gone as in left, gone as in absent. Her body was there, but her eyes were already somewhere else. She made breakfast, laughed at something on her phone, didn't look at me once. It's wild how fast indifference spreads, like a cold you never saw coming. 2 nights later, her break officially began. She packed light, gym bag, charger, the same old denim jacket she wore when she used to care. She said it wasn't about someone else, that she just needed to breathe. I didn't argue. I didn't even look up. I just nodded. She hesitated at the door. I saw her waiting for me to say something, to beg maybe. But I didn't, because I'd already decided she could have her space. I'd take the silence. She closed the door, and for the first time in years, the house sounded like peace. That night, I took my Ford F-150 and drove aimlessly around the city. No music, just streetlights flickering across the windshield, one by one. I parked near a diner, grabbed a coffee, and scrolled through my photos. Not of her, of me, the version I'd buried somewhere along the way, trying to make her happy. When I got home, her toothbrush was gone. Her scent too. But the weirdest part? I didn't feel loss. I felt clarity, like I'd been underwater for years and finally came up for air. Then, 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, and a familiar voice came through, shaky, older. Ethan, she said, it's Linda. You didn't call her back. What happened between you two? Her mother. Calling me. Not her. That's when I realized. She wasn't the only one falling apart. And for the first time, I smiled. Quietly. Because maybe the silence had finally started to speak louder than she ever did. Linda's voice had that kind of weight. The kind only mothers carry when they already know the truth but can't face it. She asked if I'd seen her daughter, if everything was okay. I told her everything was fine. Calm. Boring, even. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press. I could hear something behind her breathing. Worry, maybe regret. And when she said, "You've always been good to her," I realized she was talking more to herself than to me. After that call, I started noticing the small things she'd left behind. The empty perfume bottle on the dresser, a few Target receipts in the kitchen drawer, the faint smell of her shampoo clinging to the pillowcases. She hadn't just left for space. She'd been planning this, testing how it would feel to live without me, piece by piece. I didn't chase her. I just started paying attention to patterns, to timing. The silence between her messages. The way her break turned into long nights with her phone turned off. I stopped being the man who waited. I became the man who watched. A few days later, I went to her gym to cancel the joint membership. The girl at the front desk gave me that awkward smile people give when they know something but can't say it. She's been coming in late, she said. With someone. She didn't say who. She didn't need to. I thanked her, walked out, and didn't feel anger, just confirmation. The kind that lands quietly, like dust after a storm. That night, I sat in the living room with the lights off, scrolling through my phone, and found it. A tagged photo from a rooftop bar downtown. Her hair tied back, a new dress I'd never seen, and beside her, a hand resting too comfortably on her waist. Not his face, just the hand. But it told me enough. I didn't text her. I didn't block her. I just turned the phone face down and poured myself another drink. Somewhere in that silence, I felt something shift. Not pain, not jealousy, just detachment. A clean break inside me that I hadn't known I was capable of. The next morning, Linda called again. Her voice sounded smaller this time. She said her daughter wasn't answering, that she was worried. I told her not to be, that she was fine, out finding herself. But as I hung up, I realized the truth. Linda wasn't calling for updates. She was calling because she'd seen it too. The distance, the change, the kind of break that doesn't fix things, the kind that splits families quietly, one unanswered call at a time. And somewhere between her concern and my silence, a strange thought hit me. I wasn't the one losing her. She was the one losing the last person who still cared enough to stay quiet. By the end of that week, I stopped checking her social media altogether. It wasn't discipline, it was disinterest. I'd already seen enough. The rooftop bars, the dim selfies, the captions about healing. I knew the script before she posted it. The irony was, the more she tried to show how free she was, the more trapped she looked. Her mom called again that Sunday. I was doing groceries at Walmart, trying to remember what quiet used to feel like. Linda sounded tired. She asked if I could come by, said she needed help fixing something around the house. But when I got there, the thing that needed fixing wasn't broken. She just wanted company. I could see it in her eyes. The worry had turned into something else, guilt. She told me she didn't understand what happened, that her daughter just changed overnight. I said maybe it didn't happen overnight. Maybe she'd been changing slowly, and no one noticed. Linda looked away like she already knew that was true. Then she asked something that caught me off guard. Do you still love her? I didn't answer, because love wasn't the right word anymore. What I felt was recognition. The kind that comes after a storm when you see what's left standing. That night, I went back home and opened the drawer she used to keep her things in. Inside was a box of old photos, movie tickets, and a small note I'd written her years ago, something about how she made life lighter. I looked at it and felt nothing, just distance. That's when I knew I'd already started letting go long before she asked for that break. The next morning, her name flashed on my phone for the first time in days. I didn't pick up. I let it ring, just once, then fade. Minutes later, a text appeared. Can we talk? I didn't reply, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I wanted her to feel the silence she'd created. The space she demanded was finally here, and it wasn't warm like she imagined. It was cold. That evening, I saw her again, not in person, but on a friend's Instagram story. Same bar, same guy, except this time, she wasn't laughing. She was just staring at her drink like she'd rather be anywhere else. And in that second, something inside me settled. She was finally starting to feel what I'd felt months before she ever said the words. The emptiness she thought would give her freedom was only giving her mirrors, reflections she couldn't run from. The morning after that post, I packed a small bag, turned off my phone, and drove out of town. No message, no explanation. I didn't know one. The silence was enough. I headed north, no destination in mind, just driving until the city lights disappeared behind me. I stopped at a small diner off the highway, ordered black coffee, and watched strangers move like clockwork around me. People with routines, not ghosts. I stayed in a motel that night, the kind with buzzing lights and peeling wallpaper. I didn't care. It was peaceful. For the first time in months, no one expected anything from me. I fell asleep without checking my phone. When I woke up, there were 7 missed calls, 5 from her, 2 from Linda. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I deleted them before I could. It's strange how quiet becomes addictive once you stop filling it with noise. I started to see things clearly, the patterns I'd ignored, the excuses she'd rehearsed. Every time she said, I just need to find myself, what she really meant was, I'm already looking for someone else. By day 3, I was a ghost in my own life. My bank notifications were silent, my social media gone. I watched from a distance, her posts slowing down, her face changing, the light in her eyes dimming. She thought I'd come running when she noticed I'd vanished. Instead, she was the one calling my mother, my friends, even my old job. Linda finally reached me through email. Just one line. Please, just tell me you're okay. I replied, I am. Nothing more. The next week, something shifted. The guy she'd been seeing, the one from the rooftop, got exposed at work. Fraud, lies, something about double accounts. I didn't have to do much. Just sent an anonymous email to the right person with the right screenshots. She had no idea how deep his game went. I didn't destroy him. I just showed the truth to the right eyes. And as it all unraveled, I didn't feel revenge. I felt distance. She called me again that night. I didn't answer. Her message came a minute later. Did you do this? I read it once and locked my phone. No response. Because it wasn't me anymore. It was the silence doing the work, the same silence she asked for. And now it was finally giving her what she wanted, a life without me in it, and without the safety that came with it. A week later, her world began to shrink. Quietly, without drama. People she thought were on her side stopped calling. The rooftop friends. The coworkers who laughed at her stories. Even her sister, who used to idolize her, had started to distance herself. I didn't have to say a word. Truth spreads differently when it's silent. It seeps through the cracks, slow and undeniable. Linda called me again that Sunday. Her voice was softer this time, almost apologetic. She said her daughter had been crying, that she was confused, that everything was falling apart. I told her maybe it needed to. Sometimes the only way to rebuild is to let everything burn first. Linda didn't argue. She just sighed and said she didn't know what she had. That evening, I went back into town. I stopped by a Waffle House, same one we used to visit after long drives, and sat by the window, watching the rain hit the parking lot. I didn't expect to see her, but I did. She walked in, alone, drenched from the storm. She didn't see me. She just ordered coffee, sat 2 booths away, and stared at her phone like she was waiting for something that wasn't coming. She looked smaller, not physically, but emotionally, like the version of her that once controlled every room had finally cracked. I watched her from a distance, not out of pity, but out of understanding. She was now living in the silence she created and realizing how heavy it could get. She stayed for maybe 15 minutes, then left without finishing her drink. Her car didn't start right away. I heard the engine struggle. For a second, I thought about helping. But then I remembered. She was the one who needed a break. So I let her have it. Later that night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was her. You're really not going to say anything? I didn't reply. There's a power in restraint, in not giving someone the reaction they expect. Days passed. Then came another call from Linda. This time, she wasn't asking how I was. She was asking what she should do about her daughter. She's losing it, she said quietly. She thought he was different. Turns out he used her. Everyone knows now. I didn't respond right away. I looked out the window, watching the wind shake the trees. Then I said, let her sit in it. That's the only way she'll understand what she lost. And when I hung up, I realized something had shifted again, not in her, but in me. I no longer wanted her back. I just wanted her to face herself the same way I had. By the time a month passed, she was nowhere near the woman I used to know. The confident, polished version of her had turned into someone barely holding it together. It wasn't revenge that did it. It was silence. The kind that strips away illusions one layer at a time. People around her began to notice. The whispers at her job, the stares at the grocery store, even the way her friends hesitated before tagging her online. Everyone sensed something had shifted, but no one dared to say it aloud. One afternoon, I stopped by a Home Depot to grab a few things for the house. I ran into one of her coworkers there, a guy who used to flirt with her at office parties, the kind she swore was just friendly. He looked nervous when he saw me. Tried to play it cool. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Man, she's not doing great." I just nodded, paid for my tools, and walked out. I didn't need updates. The picture was already clear. Later that night, Linda called again. Her tone had changed completely. No questions this time, no pleading. She just said, "She's been asking about you. A lot." I didn't answer right away. She continued, "She's realizing things. You might want to talk to her before it's too late." I almost laughed at that. Too late for what? The version of me she knew no longer existed. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I went on Facebook for the first time in weeks. Her profile was still there, but everything else was gone. Photos deleted, friends reduced to a handful, status blank. She was rewriting her life again, but this time not out of pride, out of shame. The next evening, I saw her in person for the first time since everything happened. Not planned. I was at the gas station, and she pulled up beside me. Same car, but she looked different, exhausted, eyes swollen, voice small. She tried to speak, but I stayed silent. She asked if we could talk, said she didn't recognize herself anymore. I looked at her, then at the road ahead. Told her, that's what happens when you finally see the truth without filters. She stood there for a moment, like she wanted to cry but couldn't. Then she whispered, "You really changed." I didn't respond. I just closed my door, started the engine, and drove off. Because she was right, I had changed. But not into someone colder. Into someone untouchable. The kind of man who didn't need to be heard to make a point. The kind of man silence had rebuilt. After that night at the gas station, she started appearing everywhere. Not by coincidence, by design. Small places where she knew I'd be. The grocery store on Sunday mornings. The same coffee shop I stopped by before work. She never said much, just looked at me with that same quiet panic people get when they realize time doesn't stop for regret. I kept my distance. Not out of spite, out of peace. The kind you earn when you finally stop chasing ghosts. One morning, I walked into Starbucks, ordered my usual, and saw her sitting in the corner. Alone. No makeup, no smile, no audience. Just her and her phone, screen dark. When she saw me, she straightened up. I could tell she wanted to say something, but I pretended not to notice. I took my drink and sat outside, where the air was clearer. A few minutes later, she followed, sat at the next table, and asked how I'd been. Her voice cracked halfway through. I said I was good. Better, actually. She nodded, then whispered something like, "You really meant it, didn't you? Forever." I didn't answer. I just looked at her, calm, unreadable. That silence made her crumble. She said she'd made mistakes, that she didn't know what she was thinking. The words spilled out like confessions, but they weren't for me. They were for her. I watched her trying to rewrite the ending of a story she broke. She said she missed me, said she still loved me. I finished my coffee, stood up, and said, "I hope you love yourself the same way someday." Then I left. That afternoon, Linda called again. This time, she didn't sound desperate. More reflective. She said her daughter was finally understanding, that she hadn't seen her this quiet since the breakup. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Over the next few days, I kept moving forward. I started running again in the mornings, fixing things around the house, rebuilding routines that used to revolve around her absence. Life began to feel lighter, sharper. People at work noticed. Even my boss said, "You look different, man. Peace suits you." He was right. But then, late one night, I got another message. Just 3 words. "I'm not okay." No name, no context. Just that. And though I didn't reply, it stayed on my screen longer than I wanted. Because deep down, I knew that was the first honest thing she'd said in months. I didn't answer her message that night. I just stared at the words until the screen dimmed and the reflection of my own face stared back. "I'm not okay." For a second, I almost typed something, anything, but stopped. Because if I answered, it would only drag me back into the gravity I'd already escaped. Silence had rebuilt me. Breaking it now would ruin everything I'd learned. Days went by. No more messages, no more calls. Just stillness. Then, one evening, as I was leaving work, she was there, waiting by my car. She looked nothing like the woman who once told me she needed a break. Her hair was tied up messily, her eyes red, her posture small. She didn't even try to smile. She just said, "Please, I just need to understand." I leaned against the door, calm, not angry, just detached. She kept talking, her voice shaking, her words tripping over each other. She said she'd been wrong, that she thought the break would help her find clarity, but all it did was show her what she'd thrown away. She said she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't stop thinking about how I didn't fight for her. That last part made me pause. Because that's what it always was for her, the fight, the proof, the drama. She needed to be chased to feel wanted. But I'd stopped running. I looked at her and said quietly, "You didn't lose me because I stopped fighting. You lost me because you made me realize peace feels better than winning." She didn't respond. Just looked down, tears on her hands. It wasn't the loud, performative crying she used to do. This was different, smaller, rawer. The kind that comes when you finally meet the consequences of your own choices. She asked if I'd ever forgive her. I told her forgiveness was easy. Forgetting wasn't. And I meant it. For a moment, neither of us moved. Just 2 people standing in the cold, breathing the same air, but living in different worlds. Then she said something that stayed with me long after she walked away. "You're not the same man I left." I didn't answer. Because she was right. I wasn't. The man she left would have begged, argued, tried to fix everything. The man standing there just nodded, opened his car door, and drove off into the quiet. And for the first time, she didn't follow. After that night, everything about her began to unravel. The confident version she built for the world was gone, and what was left looked fragile, almost transparent. Word got around that she'd quit her job, that the guy she left me for had ghosted her once the fallout started. I didn't celebrate it. There was nothing to celebrate. Watching her break wasn't satisfying. It was predictable. You can't build peace on lies and expect it to last. Linda reached out again. She said her daughter had moved back home for a while, that she barely left her room. She asked if I'd talk to her, maybe help her get closure. I said closure doesn't come from someone else. It comes when you stop pretending the story ended differently. Linda didn't argue. She just whispered, "She really loved you, Ethan." I didn't respond. Because love without respect isn't love. It's dependency dressed up as devotion. A few days later, I saw her again. Not in person, but by accident. A video her friend posted on Facebook. She was at some family barbecue, sitting in the corner, quiet, withdrawn. No laughter, no performance. Just a woman surrounded by people who didn't know how to comfort her. For a second, I almost pitied her. Almost. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the lights from passing cars reflect off the hood of my truck. The same truck I once used to drive her everywhere. The beach, late-night movies, her endless errands at Target. Now it just sat there, silent, reliable, unmoved. Like me. The next morning, I got a call I didn't expect. Linda again. Her voice was calm this time, steady. She said, she wants to see you. Not to talk, just to see you. I didn't answer right away. She added, she finally understands. And she's not trying to fix it. She just wants to thank you. I thought about it all day. Every version of her I'd known. The one who laughed too loud. The one who lied too easily. The one who said she needed a break. And somewhere in that noise, I realized something simple but final. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need her to understand. That night, I drove to Linda's house anyway. I didn't plan to say much, just to end it face to face. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her through the window, sitting alone at the kitchen table, head in her hands. No phone, no makeup, no mask. Just her. And for the first time, she looked real. I sat in the car for a long time before going in. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The light from the kitchen spilled onto the porch, and for a second, it almost felt like coming home. But I wasn't the same man who used to walk through that door. I wasn't coming back to stay, just to close the loop. When I finally stepped inside, Linda gave me a faint smile and disappeared into another room. She didn't need to say anything. This wasn't her moment. It was ours, the final one. She was sitting at the table, eyes swollen, fingers wrapped around a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. When she looked up, I saw something I hadn't seen in her for years, honesty. No defenses, no performance, just truth, raw and heavy. She said softly that she didn't expect me to forgive her, that she didn't even know how to ask. She just wanted to tell me she understood now, what she'd done, what she'd lost. She said she'd been chasing a version of happiness that never existed, and in the process, destroyed the one thing that actually did. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. When she finished, she looked at me like she was waiting for a verdict. I could feel the weight of every memory between us pressing against that silence. Every late-night argument, every broken promise, every time she made me feel like I wasn't enough. But the anger was gone. All that was left was calm. I told her I wasn't here for closure, or payback, or even forgiveness. I was here because I wanted her to see me, not the version she left, but the one who survived it. The one who learned that peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you become. She nodded, tears sliding down her face. Said she wished she could start over. Said she'd do everything differently. I told her maybe she could, but not with me. Then I stood up, placed my keys on the table, and said the last words I'd ever say to her. You wanted space. I gave it to you. Now I'm keeping it. As I walked out, Linda called after me, asking if I'd ever come back. I turned to her and said, maybe one day. But if I do, it'll be as someone she has to earn, not someone she can lose again. When I got into the car, I didn't look back. The rearview mirror stayed dark. And for the first time since that day outside Target, the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was freedom. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.